Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to have you in on a Thursday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel in with us. Excited to talk some college football, Nebraska news, and schedule times. Get the propane ready. Get the tailgate fired up. And you can plan accordingly with the, a lot of red beer and Bloody Marys, it sounds like.
Maybe get the sunscreen ready, too.
That could happen. So we'll get to the scheduling setup. The Freedom of Information Act, a wonderful thing, and more of a reminder of just how screwy a year ago was. Details out for the world to see with Ohio State and their reaction a little less than a year ago to the Big Ten Conference. So we'll spend more time on the Nebraska schedule. Also some thoughts on when fans lose their mind, i.e. to jackwagons that just because you spent money on a seat doesn't mean you need to turn into an a-hole. Just horrificness in the NBA last night towards a couple of stars. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Find us on Twitter. Give us a follow. Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. So Lars Anderson from the Jay Barker Show. Lars Anderson, the New York Times bestselling author, wrapped up his project, his Behind the Curtain, the experience of Tampa Bay and their championship run. Tom Brady, Levante David, and Ndamukong Suh, Leonard Fournette, Bruce Arians, Gronk. I mean, it was a cast of characters, a cast of Hall of Famers and stars and Pro Bowlers. Well, Lars was a part of that ride, and we'll sit down with Lars coming up in 15 minutes, and he'll tell us about his new book, A Season in the Sun, that's going to be out late September, early October, documenting Tampa's run. And Lars is going to be great. We'll get into just how the stars aligned to get Tom Brady. And then, oh yeah, by the way, the pride of Fremont, Jason Light, former Husker and Tampa GM, saying, let's do it again, baby. And all 22 starters are back for Tampa. I know there's a lot of Chiefs fans. I like Kansas City as well. And it wasn't a good day for Kansas City against Tampa for the Super Bowl. So my sympathy to you there. But really a good look, an inside look, as Lars sat down with Bruce Arians. And his second book with BA is coming out. So Lars Anderson will give us quite a bit of time here this first hour, as we'll dive into the Tampa run and the Husker connection. In hour two, Gary Barnett will be with us, the coach. Brandon Vogel from HailVarsity.com and magazine. Vogue's with us at 5:25. And then the Pride of Chicago, Danny Burke, has some incredible NBA prop bets for you tonight. Okay, let's get into it with Nebraska's schedule. You have some kickoff times, and that is flat out awesome for Nebraska to know what's going on. Let me ask you this. Do you have a preference as a fan? Are you all about night games? Are you about the 2:30 where you get to kind of plan your day out and then get down to the stadium and rev up your tailgating? None of us are out of practice. We've just been put in timeout the last year. It will come back to us easily like riding a bike or crushing a brat. But Nebraska's had a run of 11 o'clock games. Part of that is due to their record, and part of that is also trying to kind of climb back up to national relevancy. I have no doubt the Nebraska-Oklahoma game was a sought-after commodity, right? And I know the ABC kickoff is going to have Auburn at Penn State. We'll see if College Game Day is in Happy Valley for that one. Big Ten SEC matchup, I understand it. But Fox has been all in on college football. The big noon kickoff show will be there. I think Bob Stoops is the one replacing Urban Meyer for that big noon kickoff. And Nebraska will be front and center on Fox for that game against Oklahoma. An 11 o'clock kickoff. We will be there for that. We'll get caught up with Coach Switzer. We'll have some of his wine. We'll see where the Friday, Saturday takes us ahead of Nebraska, Oklahoma. But the reality is this: Nebraska will have a lot of eyeballs on a really busy day of college football, September 18th. That's the kind of final hurrah before you get into conference season. That third week of the season is a monster list of non-conference games. That's where you build up to kind of test yourself against some interconference showdowns. It's Nebraska, it's Oklahoma, it's the 50th anniversary of the game of the century. So, listen, it'd be really cool if that was a night game, Elijah. I'll take an 11 o'clock kick. And from a nostalgia standpoint, a ton of college football eyes will be on the Big Red against the Sooners. 6:30, 7 o'clock would have been great on ABC. 11 o'clock's what you get, and it's the main feature. And it'll be promoted so much you may get sick of it, but probably not, knowing this matchup's here.
Yeah, and it's cool that all the eyeballs are going to be on Nebraska, but personally, I've always preferred the PM games, the evening kickoffs, just because of the atmosphere difference that there is in the stadiums around the country at 7 o'clock. It's the build-up. You have all day to be tailgating. You're watching these other games on TV and saying, this game's cool, but this Nebraska game tonight, that's the one I'm looking forward to. You have that build-up all day. And you watch NBA playoffs right now. Go look at Madison Square Garden. Look at the environment they have there. Look how it impacts the game.
Yeah, wear your face shield.
Especially after the past year of COVID, no fans in the stands. I think it would have been awesome to have that Nebraska-Oklahoma game be in primetime, just because of the atmosphere there would have been down in Oklahoma. That being said, though, 11 a.m. kickoff I can do. I'll come do the pregame show, I'm sure. Go back home, get in my little half-hour, 45-minute nap, or just drink some coffee, and then it's kickoff time. Like it's not the same build-up, but the eyeballs are going to be on Nebraska still, and I still appreciate that.
It'll work, and you know what? Nebraska will open things up at noon on Fox as well. Kind of the marquee game with the return of Brett Bielema and Nebraska opening on the road. That's a good get for week 0. Supposed to be in Ireland, not going to be in Ireland, but it will be Nebraska and Illinois. And it's going to be the Power 5 showdown of the day, because there's only like 4 or 5 games. I know Hawaii's playing. I know there's some other teams in action. But you'll have a good chance to showcase yourself with Nebraska, with a pretty loaded team, experience-wise, going on the road to kick off this 2021 season. Fordham will visit Lincoln at 11 o'clock. That'll be a BTN game. Also on the Big Ten Network, Buffalo comes to Lincoln. We mentioned Nebraska, Oklahoma, the big one. As we get into conference season, Northwestern and Nebraska, 6:30. These games have been so incredibly tight. They've been such one-score game, woulda, coulda, shoulda ball games for both teams. I mean, it's been down to the wire. Grab your heart medicine. You don't know how it's going to finish. And they have been absolute drama-filled. Right, you go back to the overtime win in 18 for Northwestern, where they're down double digits and they find a way. You have the last-second kick through the sea of hands for Nebraska to defeat Northwestern 13-10 in 2019. And then you have last year where Nebraska took the lead going into halftime, and then that's all they got. Right, you had a touchdown drive. And you got held to 2 field goals instead of 2 touchdowns, and Northwestern just made enough plays, forced enough turnovers, 2 red zone turnovers, right, against Northwestern last year. So this game deserves to have kind of a night showcase. You think back to the Hail Mary game in 13, where Nebraska looked done until you get the Randy Gregory and Avery Moss kind of bang, interception, touchdown return. Then Nebraska gets a stop, and then Amir puts on his Superman cape, right, and somehow gets a first down on a 4th and 15 on a little dump off. And then you get the opportunity to get the connection with Westerkamp from Ron Kellogg. So we'll see if both teams are faring all right schedule-wise by the time October 2nd gets here. Maybe it's a BTN 6:30. Maybe it's a Fox or an FS1. If both teams are unbeaten or one lost or they're ranked, I mean, a lot can be set up. Maybe that's an ABC. But this game, we'll talk to Yuri Barnett about the schedule. And specifically Nebraska Northwestern, just how that series has been so close every year. Listen, October 2nd will be a monster opportunity as well for Nebraska. You want to talk about official visits in season, come check out the atmosphere, come check out Lincoln on a game day where there's a build-up for an opponent you want to beat and you're tired of being close. Last time you blew out Northwestern, I think you got to go back to 16, right on the road with the electric white uniforms. And then even back in 14, you've done better in Evanston traditionally than you have in Lincoln against Northwestern, but you'll be able to get a long visit list officially here for some of your 2022 and 2023 kids, most likely your 2022 kids on that night game. Nebraska-Wisconsin will be on ABC. Which that has not fared well for Nebraska on ABC against Wisconsin. You don't ever want to. You don't want to go to Camp Randall at night. You just don't. If that's a 2:30 or an 11 o'clock, all right with me. If I'm a fan and I want electricity, night game would be sweet. And then you end it on Black Friday against Iowa, 12:30 kickoff, and that'll be a Big Ten game. So, hey, it's a good setup, a good listing, and you can plan accordingly. And it'd be great to get out of these 11 a.m. kicks, and you can do that by winning. You can be a more attractive. Nebraska is already an attractive TV team. They just are. People are going to watch. People know about them. Doesn't matter their record. Obviously, there's more juice to it when Nebraska's winning and doing well in college football. But just from a brand standpoint, it's still a heavy hitter when Nebraska's on TV. And specifically, we don't know what's laid out yet for Nebraska in record, and how the season's going will tell what happens with Nebraska-Michigan. Nebraska-Ohio State is still in play for TV. Will that be prime time, or will that be an afterthought? It just depends on how Nebraska's season goes. But you have some statement opportunity, for sure, against Illinois as the game of the weekend, week 0. Then against Oklahoma. What do you do against a perennial playoff favorite, a team that's supposed to compete and win for a national championship? And then Northwestern as well. I mean, those are memorable games. Against the defending West Division champ. Those are memorable games that go down to the wire, and you get it done in prime time. Those are burned into the memory. You know, think about being at night games at Memorial Stadium, where there wasn't a lot of tight games when I was growing up. But point of it is, those kind of think of the Miami game. That was kind of a back and forth ball game, and then bang, Nebraska ends up getting some breathing room, and Nebraska, everybody cheered.
Nebraska needed the energy from the crowd that night. I mean, obviously there's all the buildup because it's Miami, but you could tell the team fed off that energy, and that's what let them, kind of put in that big performance in the second half and lock down a win. And I'm looking for that same thing against Northwestern. Is there anything more perfect than an October 2nd, 6:30 start? That means it's going to be beautiful weather all day for tailgating October. That's going to be jeans and T-shirt weather. And then before the game starts, you throw on your hoodie, walk down to the stadium. And then as the game goes on, it's going to cool off. The night's going to, or the sun's going to go down. It's going to be nighttime. And the energy is just going to be live. I mean, because you just know it's going to be a close game. I'm super excited for this one. I think that's a perfect kickoff time, 6:30 October 2nd.
I'd love, and Nebraska's had their share of night games in Evanston. 2 of the last few wins against Northwestern have been night games in Evanston. So I like this schedule for Nebraska. Good on them. Real quick on Ohio State and the Freedom of Information Act. Ohio State's response now in writing. Now that digital footprint is real, and it's funny to hear the incoming president of Ohio State. She hadn't officially taken over. Johnson asked Gene Smith, "So, dude, can we go independent?" And Gene's like, "Well, let me look at that." But just a slew of email from fans that were crushed and upset. It was pretty well detailed about how there were talking points and there's a PR plan and how we handle this, and no one's a fan of the spring. What the hell's going on? Can we go independent? And, no one's going to come out after the fact and pat Nebraska on the back. That has happened. Ohio State's done that. But right now, you had Gene Smith in a text exchange with his president saying, well, Nebraska's looking into it and they're going public, or they went public with it. Just kind of shows that Nebraska, again, played fullback for the rest of college football last year, getting that running back into the end zone. And Nebraska wasn't as brazen. It was something as simple as let's explore opportunities. And Scott Frost was on the money with how this thing's going to play out pandemic-wise, as far as better to play early than late. And the Big Ten ended up playing the peak of COVID season, later into the season versus going early. Lars Anderson's next.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery, and we say hi to native Nebraskan Lincolnite, and he's down in Alabama with the Jay Barker Show, 20 New York Times best-selling books, and another one I feel like's on the way. We say hi to Lars Anderson at Lars Anderson 71. Lars, how are you, man? It's been a while.
It's been a while, Chris. Good to catch up. Good to hear your voice. Knocking out book after book here.
You have a real fantastic offering for football fans. I know Nebraska fans will be all over this as well, with the Levante David and Ndamukong Suh and Khalil Davis connection. But the Tampa Bay Bucs championship run, a season in the sun, the inside story of Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, and the making of a champion. This is fantastic. Lars, let's start off with this project and how it kind of materialized for you.
Yeah, so Bruce and I wrote a book together in 2017 called The Quarterback Whisperer, and our editor at the time was at a smaller house and a smaller publishing house in New York, and he's moved on to HarperCollins. As the Bucs were progressing through the playoff, I reached out to Bruce and said, hey, would you be willing to do something if you guys win? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So I wrote a short email to our editor, and he said, okay, well, let's just wait and see what happens in the game. All right, so they blow out the Chiefs 31-9. Then I just wrote probably just a 3-page memo kind of outlining the vision for the book. I was going to be the solo author on it, and Bruce would help me with access to coaches, to players, just basically open doors that wouldn't be open to any other reporter. Of course, for that, Bruce is compensated something. Was able to put together a book deal literally within about a week. It normally takes, months and months and months for these things to develop, and it usually requires a book proposal anywhere from 50 to 80 pages. And here I just write this quick 4-page memo, and we got a very lucrative deal. And the only problem was that I had 9 weeks to write it. Normally it takes me 18 months to write a book. And so I just I got in my car, got my dog, and went down to Tampa. Drove like 10 hours and just sort of camped in Tampa at a hotel close to Bruce's house for, a couple weeks, basically. And just interviewed as many people as possible. and then just started putting together the narrative. And it really is, it's absolutely fascinating how they landed Brady, how difficult it was for Brady to learn the Arians offense, how in many ways the Arians offense runs counter to everything that Tom ever did in New England. The New England offense, it's referred to as the Ron Earhart / Ray Perkins offense, and it was then tweaked by Charlie Weiss and modernized right when Tom got there in 2000. But still, it's really sort of a death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, Tom loves the short throws to the running backs, just the short stuff over the middle. He's not at heart, he's not a risk taker. He kind of views things through the prism of what can I do while minimizing risk, realizing my own limitations and realizing where the ball is on the field, what the down and distance is, what the score is. Well, BA is the complete opposite. He's like, look, if it is 3rd and 1 and we got the ball at our own 9-yard line and you see our best wide receiver lined up to the outside in press coverage, there's no over-the-top safety help, I want you to audible from a run play where we're probably going to get the first down to 88 go, which is Bruce's favorite play. It's just a straight go route. And so this was just a foreign concept to Tom Brady. And also the verbiage is different. And so it's almost just like he had to learn a whole new language. And in a way, I think that what made this season so special, and by most metrics, by the way, Chris, Tampa Bay went from, in terms of team merchandise sales, from, I think, 28th in the league to number 1. They had an increase of 2,500% from 1 year ago to about like last week. And of course, it's all because of Brady. But I think Brady became, and correct me if I'm wrong, and again, I'm so close to it, it's hard for me to have perspective. But I think Brady became more relatable this year. He showed a humanness. He showed frailty. He showed weakness. And it revealed that he wasn't just the guy, whether it was true or not, the perception was everything had been gifted to him. He looks like a J. Crew model. He's married to Giselle, the wealthiest model in the world. And she's actually made more money over her career, over $560 million than Tom has. I think Tom's right at $275 right now. And so I think Tom just he showed again like a relatability, and I think it increased his popularity. And then at the boat parade, you see him intoxicated on his $2 million yacht that he bought just a few days before the boat parade, and then getting inebriated, throwing the trophy, and again I think he's almost like the only person on the planet who can get away with public intoxication and actually increase people's affection for him because we're seeing a side of Tom, and also just sort of battling father time, doing this at age 43. It's really an incredible thing, and then Bruce becoming the oldest head coach to ever win a Super Bowl, and for Nebraska fans, I'll tell you, he absolutely loves Levante David. He's his favorite player on the defense. He's the leader of the defense. Whenever Bruce wants to sort of take the temperature of the defense, of the players, of their feelings, of their attitudes, he goes to Levante. And Bruce always does this with every team he's been on. He picks the most respected vet, and he establishes an incredibly close relationship. And it was Levante who kind of noted that Leonard Fournette during practices was sort of distancing himself from the rest of the team, and this was at the midway point of the year. And he sat through an entire walkthrough on a water cooler, and it was Levante who mentioned to BA that you need to talk to Leonard. And Bruce did. He went and said, and again, at this point in the season, Leonard was not getting many carries, just a few a game. And Bruce said, okay, here's the deal. He's like, I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset with you, but I'm not going to let you destroy my locker room. Mm-hmm. And you can go inside the facility, take 20 minutes, call whoever you need to call, and then you come back out here and you tell me to either cut you or you're all in. And so Leonard did that. He went inside, made a few phone calls, came back out and said, Coach, I'm good. And not even Bruce could have realized how vital Leonard was going to be. I mean, you could make the argument that Fournette really was the Bucs' offensive MVP for the entirety of the playoffs, and that went back to Levante having a conversation with Bruce.
Lars Anderson's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, A Season in the Sun, his new book, The Championship Run for Tampa Bay, Unparalleled Access with Bruce Arians and the Bucs. That's Levante. You talk to him, you talk to his teammates, past and current, and they will do anything for him because he does everything for them on the field, off the field. Playoff Lenny was huge. But the personalities that were acquired by also native Nebraskan Jason Light, incredible. You bring in Antonio Brown. Here comes Gronk. Meanwhile, you've got Brady. Mike Evans has been great for a decade plus, and you add weapons, so it's not all on Evans' shoulders. Your offensive line stellar. You get Sue back. Or you add Sue to the roster, and Levante's always kind of been quietly killing it, and finally he got some exposure. Bruce is just magic, it sounds like, Lars, not only with the Fournette story, but just he's not afraid. He looks at the talent, and guys want to fit in and play with him, play for him.
Absolutely. And, when he took the job in 2019, he 100% thought that he could fix Jameis Winston. Bruce holds a football camp here in Birmingham, Alabama, and he got to know Jameis when Jameis was just, I think, in 9th grade. And they had sort of maintained a relationship over the years, and so Bruce thought he could turn Jameis into an elite quarterback, into a Pro Bowl quarterback, into a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But, Jameis ends up throwing 30 interceptions. That's more than any other quarterback has thrown in the 21st century. The last interception was just the dagger of 2019. He threw a pick six, and it was the quickest overtime game on the first play of overtime. It was the quickest overtime game in NFL history, and Bruce just was saying, enough's enough. And they were really looking at Teddy Bridgewater. They thought that Bridgewater was going to be their guy. And then, all of a sudden Brady is having some issues, and they start hearing these sort of rumors coming out of New England that Brady could be available. And this guy, John Spytek, very important figure in the landing of Brady. He's a scout for Tampa, and he played with Brady for one season at Michigan. And he sort of through his own sources, own mutual friends with Tom, found out that, this is real. Like he's ready to go. And on the first day of free agency, I think it opened at 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock and 10 seconds, Jason Light, Nebraskan, who I absolutely adore. I love Jason Light. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. We have mutual friends. Mm-hmm. He knows Ted Wright. He used to be a bouncer at the Brass Rail. I got so many great stories. About Jason. But I'll get into that in a second. But at 4 minutes, 10 seconds, Jason calls Don Yee, who is Tom's agent, and Yee said, "You made the right call, Jason." And they went on to talk and said that, Tom's interested.
And we're back
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Lars Anderson continues on with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, on a Thursday. And Lars, tell me about that phone call between Jason Light, Bruce Arians, and when they got on the horn with Tom Brady.
3 days later, the first day that they could have talks with players, Jason drove over to BA's house, and again, they're both sort of former bartenders / bouncers. As one of them put it to me, before they called Tom, they got a little personality in them, and 5 seconds after free agency began, they called Tom. Tom answered the phone and said to Jason, "What's up, babe?" And right then, they knew they had him. And it was almost like Tom was pitching himself more than the Bucs had to pitch Tom, because Tom had already done his research. He knew about the wide receivers. He knew about the young, talented defense. He knew everything. He wanted to be in a warm weather climate. He and Giselle were going to build their forever home, which they're doing right now in Miami. He knew that Derek Jeter's place, the biggest, it's a mansion. It's the biggest house in Hillsborough County, which Tampa is in. He knew that was vacant, and that Jeter had offered, Jeter was going to be his landlord, and he'd have to pay rent and everything, but he knew that was available. Just all the stars aligned. He wanted to play with Bruce, who I think, through talking with me and just knowing about Bruce, he's the anti-Belichick. I mean, Bruce, do you imagine Belichick having a tailgate out of the back of his car after every game? I mean, he couldn't do it this last year because of COVID-19, but that's what Bruce does. He wants his players to come by, and anybody who wants to come by, he'll give you a beer or make you a drink. He's so close with his players. He wants to know, about their personal lives. If they ever have any problems, they can approach him. He's just a very approachable, likable guy, and you can't necessarily say those same personality characteristics apply to Belichick. But they knew from that very first phone call, Jason and Bruce, that they had their man. Yeah, and Tom could have asked for more money. I mean, I think it was a 2-year, $40 million. It was just recently renegotiated. But he could have asked for anything he wanted, and they would have given it to him. And then Tom, he was going to change his number because number 12 was worn by Chris Godwin, wide receiver. And Tom was going to change it to number 8. To number 7, because he wanted that 7th Super Bowl ring. But Godwin, being a pretty smart guy himself, knowing that he was coming into a contract year, he wanted to make sure that his quarterback felt very good about him. So he gave the number up he didn't charge Tom anything. You've heard these wild stories in the past where I think Clinton Portis paid like $35,000 to get the number 26 when he was with the Redskins. And you've heard all these crazy stories, but Godwin just gave the number over to him. But again, it took a while. First game out of the gate, Tom throws a pick 6. They get beat by New Orleans. They lose 3 out of 4 games going into the bye week. During the bye, Rob Ninkovich, who is a former Patriot and teammate of Brady's, he goes on ESPN's Get Up and says that Arians should be fired. And, Arians, and Bruce watched it. He saw it, and Arians is just like, this guy's got no idea what he's talking about. He doesn't know how close we are. And after the bye week, Bruce and Tom spent hours and hours just figuring out more about the playbook, trying to meld what Tom was comfortable with and what he was doing at New England with the Arians sort of way. And bam, they just take off from there, and they end up winning 8 straight in the Super Bowl. And look, they conquered Drew Brees, his final game. Brady says goodbye. They conquer Aaron Rodgers on the road. Aaron Rodgers may never play another game in Green Bay. Who knows? And then they conquer Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl, it was just a masterful from Todd Bowles. It was, to me, like the defensive coordinator was the sort of MVP of that. Tampa had blitzed on a percentage-wise more than any team in the NFL heading into that game. But because the Chiefs had both their left tackle and their right tackle were both injured, Bowles was confident that they could just get pressure with 4. Mahomes was hobbled a little bit with an ankle injury, and so Bowles sent fewer blitzes in that game than he had in the previous 7 years when he was presiding over a defense. So he was just totally out of character. They were going to double Tyreek Hill wherever he went. They were not going to let Tyreek Hill get behind them. And they also thought it was a big advantage if they played the Chiefs earlier in the year, because it's you can see their speed on tape, but it's different kind of speed when it's on the field. So now they knew kind of what they were up against. But it's a really fun story, and the fact is now they have all 22 starters coming back. First time that's happened since 1977 with the Oakland Raiders. And this team was just hitting its peak in the playoffs, and again, even though Brady's the sort of headliner, this is a team built by the defense. This is a team where the strength of it is the defense, and again, Bruce absolutely loves David, and he loves Sue, and Sue is still playing also at a very high level.
Well, Lars Anderson with us. Lars, it's fascinating about Bowles, and you got Shaq Barrett. He's a UNO kid till they disbanded the program, and he's a kid that was at Boys Town. So there's another Nebraska connection, but you got JPP and Barrett off the edge with Sue in the middle, and you didn't have to blitz, and they really took advantage of Kansas City and earned a title, and I know folks are still smiling about it. Is BA surprised they got it done this soon? I know they hit their peak, but usually it's a second-year deal after you kind of get your footing.
Absolutely. When they're at 7-5 at the bye week, when he had that long chat with Brady, he was thinking about trying to build momentum for 2021. He was not thinking about the Super Bowl. I mean, he told me that straight up. He was just trying to fix, because they lost 3 out of 4. And Tom often looked lost out there. There's just you can't deny that. Early in the season, he didn't know where his receivers were going to be. It hurt him because they missed OTAs. The Bucks offensive staff estimated that Tom missed something like 1,500 reps because of COVID-19. And not only that, literally thousands of more mental reps that he could have done with coaches. They're facing a big uphill battle. But yeah, everything was geared toward 2021, toward this upcoming season, not last season. Again, we saw them win their last 8 games, and none of them were really that close. Packers game, yes, questionable decisions by Matt LaFleur, but especially if Aaron Rodgers ends up leaving the NFC, I can't see the Rodgers thing getting resolved. It's either he goes or the general manager goes, and we'll have to see how that plays out. They are primed for another run, no question about it.
Lars Anderson, A Season in the Sun, his book with Bruce Arians, The Tampa Title Run. Last thoughts with Lars next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Lars, last thought here. I need a Jason Light bartending story from O Street back in the day.
Yes. Jason told me about a night that a intoxicated customer who he had turned away followed him to his Jeep. By the way, Jason, he cruised around town with a Jeep that didn't have a top on, even in the dead of winter. And followed him to his Jeep and pulled a knife out on him. And the guy, and right at that moment, one of Jason's teammates from Nebraska arrived on the scene, and the guy lost grip of the knife. And let me just put it this way, the outcome didn't end well for the attacker. The snow on the ground was covered in blood, and it wasn't Jason. So, but he did tell me that, he kind of had to reevaluate where he was going with his life after that night.
Well, it's worked out well. Lars, best to you. We'll get caught up again. Congratulations. A Season in the Sun, the story of the Tampa Bay title run with Lars Anderson. Lars, when's this book come out?
It's hopefully going to be out late September, early October.
Well, we'll get a copy, and Nebraska fans, you'll love this read. Lars, take care, buddy.
All right, thanks, Chris. See you, bye-bye.
All right, Lars Anderson, long sit down with him, but pretty awesome insight. Levante David, Sue, Bruce Arians. Lars was there right after the Super Bowl, and you sit down with Bruce Arians, their second book together. And, of course, Jason Light, Husker, and, of course, went to Westland and Pride of Fremont, man. And he was a bartender at the Rail. And Husker player having a Husker teammates back one snowy night on O Street.
And the one part of that story I want to get more clear on is I wish you could have gotten into this. We ran out of time, but how the attacker just lost grip of the knife. I feel like that's a very I wouldn't go up and sneak up on somebody with a knife, but if I did, I feel like the most important aspect of that would be keeping hold of the knife.
Disarming.
Well, I mean, yeah, I feel like Light, that's definitely his number one priority there is get the knife out of this guy's hands, but like...
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean,
that's a wild story.
I can't wait to get this book and just go through it. And obviously the Nebraska influence and impact on Tampa's team, but even, Shaq Barrett. I mean, the kid's just such an example coming from Boys Town, having to, figure out a new program after UNO. And went to Colorado State and killed it, and everyone's back. So Tampa's been fun, and then there's probably a lot of fun with Gronk in the book as well.
Yeah, I mean, and just of like the Super Bowls I've seen in my lifetime, this team's got one of the crazier stories from the season. If it's Tom Brady coming in, solidifying his legacy as the greatest quarterback of all time because he's coming to do it for a different team. And hey, let's not forget he's doing it in a season with COVID where he's losing, I think Lars said 1,500 reps.
That's and
they go in their bye week at 7-5, barely above 500. They still go on and go beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Well, and it's a 180 offensive philosophy wise. Let's go big or go home versus don't screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe Castiglione has put his thoughts on the 11 o'clock kickoff. We started off the show talking about kickoff times for Nebraska. Nebraska getting pinyated by Oklahoma fan on Twitter. We will talk with Gary Barnett here next segment, but Joe Castiglione bitterly disappointed about the TV partnership. The Big 12 tried to do their part, and Fox not so much. No night game, and Castiglione's hot about it.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Thanks for hanging out. Hour 2, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. So we'll get into Joe Castiglione's statement on Twitter. Just heard from Barry Switzer, and he's like, you know what? It's not the best time to commemorate our history. That's what Barry just texted me. 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock, night game. 1 o'clock would have been the traditional time when the game of the century started. Welcome in the head coach, Hall of Famer with Northwestern in Colorado, Gary Barnett. Coach, how's the Thursday going?
It's a good Thursday out here in Boulder, Chris. So other than my dogs barking at everybody that walks by, as you can hear, but good day, sunny day here in Boulder.
Well, thanks for joining us. Now, what kind of pup do you have?
Well, I had a little knee scope on Tuesday, so I'm out till Saturday probably. So just getting things done around the house.
Well, I'm wondering what kind of dog you have.
Well, I can tell you his name is Ditka. He is a 12-pound Havanese, and he's from Chicago. So we had to give him a name that was a Chicago name. So he's sort of grown into Ditka. You know, he thinks he's Ditka.
So he can take on the rest of the neighborhood, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's pretty good. Well, I got to ask you, when it comes to kickoff times and scheduling Coach, how much say did you have? Or when it came to kickoff times, if you had a big non-conference game, did you push for night games, or did you let the AD handle that?
I didn't really care, Chris. I didn't have any say in it anyway. Once, the latter part of my career, the TVs were telling us when we were going to play. We occasionally had a chance to, if we weren't going to be on television, we could pick it. And then, I prefer the old early 1 o'clock, or not early, but standard college football time that I used to play and coach and watch. And so I would have preferred a 1 o'clock. But, we just got stuck here with an 11 o'clock game against Minnesota, which is a big, it's one of our big two big non-conference games, an important game. So, it doesn't hurt Minnesota because it's 12 o'clock their time, but Colorado, it's 11 o'clock. Now, I didn't really care, I think the players, for the most part, would just soon get out and play and get it over with, and, so they have the rest of the evening to watch other people play. So, I don't think it's a big deal, but I think for fans it is.
What's your reaction to Joe Castiglione's statement?
Well, I don't know if I saw the statement. I saw the one you sent me.
That was it.
Yeah, and so, I agree with Joe. I mean, you had a chance to revisit this great rivalry and put it in what is prime time. But you think about it this way: the Texas-Oklahoma games, as big a rivalry as there is, and it's played at 10 o'clock in the morning at the fairgrounds. So, it's not all that bad. Everybody's going to watch it. So it's just, I don't think it's such a bad time, but I know it's not what they wanted.
I'm thinking from Oklahoma's perspective, you get this thing at night, and you're kind of the showcase game. And I did a little research with the schedule that week 4, and you've got Auburn at Penn State. That's the ESPN College Game Day setup, likely, right? Auburn's headed to Penn State, so that's the ABC night game. CBS will have Bama at Florida, which will be a whale of a ball game. Minnesota, Colorado. Boise is hosting Oklahoma State, and then Miami is hosting Michigan State. So it's a great weekend of college football, but just from a historical standpoint, the headliner is Nebraska, Oklahoma. Obviously, Bama, Florida is your top 5 matchup, and possibly Auburn, Penn State. But I'm thinking from a recruiting standpoint, too. If I'm Oklahoma, I know they get most of their kids from either Texas or California. I got a night game. I can fly some kids in potentially for the morning. And if you do it at 11 o'clock, that's a difficult turnaround for some of the kids getting out of high school.
Yeah, it is. And so, it may not be that big a weekend for them. I don't think those guys really like bringing kids in at that time anyway. But,
yeah.
I think part of it is just that, Nebraska's schedule, or Nebraska's last 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it is, the rivalry is big in our minds because both of those were great teams and great programs at the time. And, Oklahoma's hung on to that sort of moniker, and Nebraska's, needs to live up to it, I think, a little bit. So I'm sure that might have had something to do with it.
I think it had about everything to do with it. I mean, you need to start winning ball games to be prime time, a commodity. And Nebraska's brand is, but it's been a while since you visited the top 25. If I'm a TV executive, that's where I'm going. I mean, it hurts to say. It really hurts to say.
Yeah.
What's your thought here with I want to go to Northwestern Nebraska, and didn't get a chance to ask you last week about the trip to Ireland, and Nebraska and Northwestern, Fitzy and Frosty kicking things off across the pond.
Well, it's interesting, and I know that initially it was supposed to be Nebraska and someone else.
Illinois this year.
Illinois, yeah, and so Northwestern got pulled into it. I think Northwestern's excited about doing it. I mean, a guy like Fitzpatrick, why wouldn't he want to play in Ireland? So, it's. I think it's going to be a great thing. My son's already made arrangements to go over there, and I know it'll travel pretty well for Northwestern, and so it's even one that I sort of have a little interest in going and attending, but probably won't.
Well, you want to start rowing, I'll get the boat. I mean,
Yeah, that's the way I'll get there. I can't afford it the other way.
No kidding. Well, when we're talking TV times, Nebraska Northwestern is going to be a night game. We don't know the network yet, but 6:30. And when I look at all the Big Ten games since Nebraska's been in the Big Ten, you've had some insane finishes, and they've been one-possession games. Doesn't it feel kind of fitting that Nebraska Northwestern is going to be a night game?
Yeah, it really is, and they have had just great games. Just back and forth. Everything's been close, and then they've had some crazy plays in those games as well. I remember watching the one that went to overtime where the quarterback, the snap was bad to the quarterback, and it ended up costing them the game. So it's on the shotgun, but yeah, I think it's a great match. That's become a really nice rivalry, I think, for the Big Ten.
Few minutes here. Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, you had some of the Public Information Act materials accessed by members of the media, and you had a chance to see some initial text messages between the Ohio State president and Gene Smith, the athletic director. What'd you think of what you read? More is going to come out. I mean, we're talking 2,500 pages of documents, but it revisits last year. Were you surprised by what you saw?
No, not really. I mean, I think we all knew that Ohio State they were going to find a way to play. And so I don't think I'm surprised. Were you surprised?
No,
I wasn't.
I thought Nebraska. I thought Nebraska, being as vocal as they were initially, was right on, and I thought Ohio State was kind of right with them there. I just don't know how things are going to go for Commissioner Warren, in about 2 months with media days, because that's going to be happening, and there's questions to answer, and people are upset about how he's handled baseball, but that's baseball. But football, I mean, I guess my take is this. I think things are rocky. I think Indiana's hacked off at the Big Ten with kind of changing the rules, with playing in the conference title game, and then also Indiana not getting to a New Year's Day 6 as good as they were last year. So you tell me this. You were in the league, and you were in the league when Delaney was there. Anything ever close to headaches like this?
No, I don't think so. When I first got there in 92, we had a real budget crisis. We had some real expense problems, and that's when they made us ride a bus if it were 200 miles or less. If it was 400, you could ride one way and fly home, or fly there and go on a bus home. So we all were put under some financial restrictions, of which, it helps some of us, and we were one of those particular teams that was struggling financially. But, it put a big, it caused Ohio State and Michigan and teams like that who could afford easily to fly. It wasn't a big deal. That it just sort of brought us all down to the same level. I thought that was probably a little unfair, but I guess for the greater good, that's the kind of stuff you got to do. But that's the only one I can really think of, Chris, that got close.
What about getting to Northwestern, and then, however it came up, the fact that Northwestern was thinking of going to the Ivy League for football?
Well, I had heard the rumors about that, but when I went on the interview, and I did a really poor job of investigating the whole Northwestern thing. I didn't do a good job. One, I didn't think I was going to take it, so I didn't think I needed to do that kind of work on it. But secondly, if you read the book by John Bacon, Fourth and Long Gone, I'm telling you, it was within an eyelash of Northwestern leaving that league and being out of there. And I didn't have any idea it was as close as what I found out it was. So, I just thought, well, it's rumors, and just they hadn't won, and that's why they're doing it. But I didn't realize, just how much they sort of were soaking the league. I mean, they were providing no revenue, and yet, getting their share. And so I didn't know that. So, and then as I went to meetings, and I heard complaints from coaches that were adamant about that. They said, I don't know. You guys get the same money as we do, and you don't make us any. And I thought, whoa.
Hey, man, I just got here. I'll bring the beer next time, man. I mean, come on. But, so who would they have replaced Northwestern with?
Well, I don't know that they had to, because they had Penn State already.
Okay, so we're right at that. Okay, so you would have added Penn State.
Penn State was in the league.
Okay,
was in the league,
gotcha. So you were good.
And in fact, I think that the fact that Penn State was coming in, that was going to really be sort of the curtain call for Northwestern, and that would just push them out pretty easily. It was an easy transition. And so, however that got changed around, I mean, North Pat and me and all of our guys were just fortunate it happened. So.
Well, what other gigs were you considering besides Northwestern?
Well, I didn't have a lot of choices, Chris. You don't have a lot of choices when you're an assistant coach. And when I went in there, Bill McCartney, I came back and I said, I don't think I'm taking this job, Bill. He said, well, are they going to offer it to you? I said, I think they are, but I don't. You should have been there with me. And he says, you got to take it. He says, these jobs don't come around very often. It's a Big Ten job, and you understand, I grew up in the Big Eight, and I didn't know that much about the Big Ten. It was when I spoke about us going to the Rose Bowl and seeing the city turned upside down about it, and roses and that kind of stuff. I didn't understand it, and I was just naive to it more than anything else. So, to me, a job in the Big Eight was a better job than a job in the Big Ten. So, I just didn't know much. And Bill just said, these jobs don't come around, and you've got to take it. And so I did.
Well, and you went.
And I went.
Yeah, to the Rose Bowl. That was good. Coach, have a good week and have a good holiday weekend, and thanks for a few minutes today.
You bet, Chris. Great being with you.
Take care.
Thank you.
There he is, Gary Barnett with us, Hail Varsity Radio. So nothing too new out of the Gene Smith thing, but it's going to be a little interesting come media days with Commissioner Warren. Now, he's had few interviews, but he's had a couple, right? But there are a lot. Some patrons aren't happy with him, and some have moved on, right? So let's see if year two can be better. And with Castiglione, man, that's kind of unlike him. I mean, he's a phenomenal AD, but this probably just does slap all they wanted to do from a celebratory standpoint, and being the epicenter of a focal point weekend of college football.
Well, yeah, think about it. If you're trying to build environment around the stadium, building up this huge game, it's pretty impossible that people aren't going to be showing up at 7 a.m. to partake in these festivities, You
still might, but just from an exposure standpoint. I mean, in early season, Oklahoma's already going to get watched. They're going to be top 4, top 5. They're a playoff favorite, not to win it, but to get there. And
I look at the slate of games that they have that weekend, and Nebraska, Oklahoma probably should be the 11 o'clock game if it's still going to be national television.
But Bama, Florida is not going to be a night game. I mean, CBS will snatch that.
2:30.
That's 2:30, and then Auburn, Penn State. But you're seeing it on Twitter. I mean, Nebraska's got to get better.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Well, let's get more into this Oklahoma response on the big noon kickoff, 11 a.m. deal. We say hi to the managing editor with HailVarsity.com and magazine. His book with John Cook, Dream Like a Champion. Brandon Vogel with us, at Brandon L. Vogel. Vogues, are you dreaming of a 7 p.m. kick, or Man, is Castiglione just overblowing this? This is weird, isn't it?
Well, it struck me as a little bit of a strange thing to issue a statement on. Now, we know from earlier scheduling problems with this game, he's pretty out front in terms of, like, getting things out there, issuing a statement. It says to me that this must be something that Oklahoma fans cared a good deal about. And, I mean, I know there are Nebraska fans, too, who are hoping to get down there or already planning to get down there, who'd much rather have, you know, a 2:30 or a primetime kickoff. So, you know, you don't see an AD issue a statement on game times all that often, at least that I can remember. So it struck me as a bit strange, but I assume it's something that Sooner fans must have been talking about quite a bit.
He has taken it. He's probably been taking it for the last 12 to 24 hours. You mean, think about the big money people, think about the history. I shot you the response that Coach Switzer sent me, and he's kind of like, you know, what the hell, as far as just it's not the time to celebrate our history, not the best time. But Vogues, if you're drafting, where you drafted Nebraska, Oklahoma in 2021? Are you drafting it ahead of Auburn, Penn State? Are you drafting it ahead of Bama, Florida? Are you drafting it ahead of Boise, Oklahoma State? Or Minnesota, Colorado, or even Sparty, Miami? Now, in our heart, yes, it's top of the list. It's always top of the list. It's Nebraska, it's Oklahoma. But if you're a TV guy, if you're a TV exec, you know, where are you picking this game?
Yeah, it's tough at the moment, obviously. Like, Oklahoma looks like it could have, I mean, its consistency over the past 20 years is impressive, but it looks like it could have one of its best teams. And with Nebraska, we don't know that yet. It hasn't been close to that. So, you know, I don't know that this is, given some of the other games you mentioned, like, I don't know if this is top choice for the primetime slot either. So that afternoon slot is probably where I would have gone. It's a little bit of the best of both worlds, though. Fox definitely does, you know, from Fox's perspective, I think they're probably like, we're giving it our second best slot, or maybe even our best slot, because you have a 2-hour pregame show. There's plenty to talk about, obviously with the history between the programs, but then with everything that's gone on around this game to this point. So I think Fox is giving it a lot of attention. And, yeah, they're serving their own interests. They want to continue making Big Noon Saturday a thing. And, you know, back in 2019, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but going up against game day is tough. And they made some impressive strides. So you can't totally fault the strategy at this point.
No, and Urban was huge, and having Klatt on the broadcast is big. Urban's now in Jayville looking at his new tight end. So you got Big Game Bob, who sure as hell won't be biased at all, kind of moving into the coach's chair there. But, you know, I look at Fox, and they just have 2 college football games scheduled that day. It's Nebraska at 11, and then it's USC at Washington State at 2:30. Now, that baseball's regular season gets done at the end of September, so I don't think you're running into any MLB postseason snafus. They just don't have a night kickoff scheduled. And that's not always the case, because there's been some Big 12 games that they've had at night. But I don't know. Even if ABC's taking Penn State and Auburn, you would think ESPN would. Well, they'll do an SEC game, but I don't know if that SEC game would trump Nebraska, Oklahoma, whatever the second place SEC game is, because, you know, CBS is going to print money with Bama, Florida in the afternoon. So now the social media arrows from Oklahoma fan has been a little bit unforgiving here the last 2 hours. Bomani Jones also off the top rope with the steel chair. The sad truth is you've just got to make a bowl game and win and be above 500 if you're Nebraska, if you want to bitch about kickoff times.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where things are. Like, you know, it's you just don't have a lot that commands that. Now, I did see a number of people mention, 2000, 2001, when the roles were kind of reversed. I mean, Oklahoma was ranked in the top 5 at that point, so it's not a 1-to-1 comparison by any means, but was coming off, a rough 4, 5, 6 year stretch. Those were noon games, 11 a.m. games too. And I think that's more a reflection of kind of how much college football has changed in that, we're geared towards, the biggest games happen at night. And that wasn't necessarily the case 20 years ago.
Yeah, Brandon, I pulled up some stats. This is from sportsmediawatch.com. It had the ratings of all the nationally televised games from last year. And aside from 3 weeks last season of the college football season, this was a longer college football season because of the weird start times. Aside from 3 weeks, the top game every single week, national, according to their rating, was either a 3:30 kickoff or a noon kickoff. So for Central Time, that's 2:30 or a noon kickoff. Is that surprising to you that it's consistently these 2:30 and noon starts that are actually getting the top ratings?
Yeah, a little bit, particularly on a Saturday. I mean, I think the theory behind primetime is, well, one, from a fan's perspective, everything just feels bigger, right? The lights are on. You've had all day to get ready for the game, and the anticipation builds. And I think you feel that whether you're at the game or whether you're at home. It seems a bit strange because putting them later in the day, I mean, so people can go about their Saturdays, Not everybody sits down and watches as much as they can in 14 straight hours of football, though I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite things to do. So that is a bit interesting. And I think what that kind of indicates is that so much of this is matchup driven. Like, if the game people want to see is at noon or it's at 3:30, they'll make a point to see it. So it's just it's one of those off-season things. I was, like we'd already said, I was very surprised that this became a thing, because when those game times came down, I was like, oh, that's not ideal. It's not what I thought it would be, but I didn't think it would become, quote unquote, a thing for an afternoon.
Brandon Vogel's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Can find Brandon on Twitter at Brandon L. Vogel, managing editor, HailVarsity.com and magazine. And, of course, his book, Dream Like a Champion. So how rough is it going to be? We were talking with Coach Barnett about this. What do you anticipate here? And I know we're a few weeks away, but can year 2 be better for Commissioner Warren? Based on some of the freedom of information stuff that's coming out with Ohio State?
I think so. I think if he makes a point to be a little bit more kind of open and available, a big story where he talks candidly about the challenges that the pandemic brought for his first year probably would help with that a little bit. Some additional success on the football field wouldn't hurt either. And not that the Big Ten's been bad by any means. It's just been, well, Ohio State's your title contender, and then who else is going to flirt with it for a while, other than the year where it was Ohio State got selected over Penn State, despite not winning the league title. The Big Ten hasn't totally had that. Wisconsin's been close a little bit, but never there was never any kind of selection day drama with anybody else in the Big Ten minus that 1 year. Can they get there where you've got two teams in real contention? I don't know who those two teams are going to be. In fact, you look at Ohio State and it's foolish to even consider it, but if there's a year to get Ohio State, this might be it, just with a new quarterback, plus they annually have to replace like half their team. But I think that would go a long way, those kind of two factors. Be a little bit more open, be a little bit more available, talk candidly about what's happened in the past, which will buy you some goodwill for the future, and then hopefully your football team will come through for you.
Well, we're talking TV schedules. We're talking Commissioner Warren. Can we just make this set in stone that Nebraska Northwestern's always going to be a night game?
It seems like it. Last year was obviously a unique circumstance, and it felt like Nebraska played at 11 a.m. every week. But yeah, those Northwestern night games they tend to work out pretty well for. Well, just that game. I mean, all those games have been close, and they've been played at a variety of times. But I'll sign up for Northwestern and Nebraska at night.
Oh, and it's going to be a good recruiting weekend, you'd think, with the ability to bring folks in. and that's nice. Last thought here on TV and kickoff times, Vogues, and maybe you have some access to this, Elijah, as well, but Nebraska's brand is still a national draw, clearly. But from an eyeball standpoint, Nebraska's had some of the most watched college football games the last 5 years. Forget 10 years, forget 20 years, forget Glory era. People still watch. The nation still will tune in and check out Nebraska, Ohio State. A lot of that's Ohio State, but you've got Nebraska, Penn State. Nebraska still does well with TV eyeballs. Fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. And so much of the kind of ratings game is changing too as people watch in different ways. We all still try to figure out what's the best way to accurately measure this. Brand names like that are always going to play, because you think about it, if you're the average college football fan who doesn't have a stake in the game, most of the time that person's going to jump into a game that includes Nebraska, almost no matter who it's against, versus, the Mountain West game that kicks off at 3:30, which is no disrespect to Mountain West. Oftentimes they don't get the attention that they deserve. And I think a lot of that's just built into, hey, names that people recognize. So it goes for Nebraska. I don't know that the 11 a.m. Fordham slot was their desired slot for that because recruiting-wise, but hey, so it goes. That's what the money's for, as they say.
Vogues, about 20 seconds, bud. A thought here on the yearbook. I know it's getting close to print time with the Hail Varsity yearbook.
Yeah, it is. I wish we were past the print deadline because there's there's a lot to proof and edit before then. But I'm really excited for people to get a chance to see it here in June. Another really good complement of stories. Got some features on players who will matter quite a bit. Still really proud of the analysis that goes into that, whether it's position by position for Nebraska or previewing all the Big Ten. So excited for people to see it.
Vogues, we'll talk Saturday. Thanks for jumping on today.
Thank you.
All right, Brandon Vogel. Way.
And we're back
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back in, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for Burke's Best Bets. Danny Burke with us, Pride of Chicago, at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter's where you find him. VSiN Sports Network's where you hear him. Rush Hour 6 to 7 weeknights. Over 100 affiliates, and iHeart Media where you can hear it. Danny, how's the old NBA treating you so far? Postseason's been pretty entertaining.
Man, it has been entertaining, and the cool thing about it is now that these games are narrowed down, you get a lot more unique type of opportunities to bet different kind of props, which I like to delve into, as you know, very much compared to more so the straight-up game bets. And I still do those, but honestly, there's a lot more available, so it's been fun to kind of get into those and kind of doing the same for tonight. Well,
a trio of ball games, Bucks, Heat. You have Milwaukee leading 2-0. Phoenix, L.A., big time for L.A. to come back and tie that series up. That's the line 6.5. Lake Show, Milwaukee, a 1.5-point favorite on the road. And then Nuggets, Blazers. That's been really awesome. Series tied at 1 apiece. Portland at home. They are favored by 4. So let's start off with Milwaukee and Miami. Some in-game intrigue for you.
Yeah, so with this one, just first of all, looking at the overall game, I mean, I'm tempted to go with Milwaukee. We saw the line open 1 in favor of Miami. Now it's swung over to Milwaukee being a 1.5-point favorite, and it's hard to disagree with that considering what we've seen the first 2 games, especially the second game. But look, if there's a team who's going to play tough their first home game in the series, it's going to be this Miami Heat team that is still pretty deep. They just need to get the offense going. And that kind of leads me to my point with one of these players. I say they have to get the offense going, but I think his prop is a little bit too highly adjusted, and that's Jimmy Butler. I'm a big Jimmy Buckets fan, the former Chicago Bull, but look, in the series, Game 2, he only dropped 10 points, Schmitty. In Game 1, he only dropped 17. He's not necessarily your perennial scorer. Duncan Robinson was the main guy Game 1, and then Bam Adebayo's been slacking too. I mean, Milwaukee is a great defensive team. They're not as good as they were in the past couple seasons, but they still defend very well, especially at the rim. So we're seeing in some spots Jimmy Butler's points prop at 24.5, which is kind of absurd to me. And you saw it at 23.5 in some books too. So I took advantage of the better number, played the under in this spot because, again, look, he only got 17 and 10 respectively in the first two games. Plus, he's only averaging 21.5 on the whole season in its entirety. You look at his shot selection, 46% come at the rim. And again, the Bucs are limiting opponents to making just over 61.5% at the rim, which is fourth best in the association. So I'm not expecting a huge game out of Butler. And even if he does have a solid game, 24.5 seems a little bit too high. No chance I'd go to the over with that. So I play Butler under 24.5 points.
Bottom line is he either goes off for 30 and hammers you in game and the Heat win and they keep fighting, or this thing's 3-zip and Milwaukee's about ready to close out. I mean, that's cut and dry tonight.
100%, right. I mean, it's all going to be correlated with Butler. So if he's finding a rhythm finally, then maybe you want to look toward Miami closing out this game if you can get a good in-game betting opportunity as well. But I'm leaning with the Bucs a little bit, and again, still not sold on Jimmy's offense in this series. What
do you like about this Suns-Lakers series here, tied at 1 apiece? What's some in-game intrigue? And as far as the overall, do you like the 6.5 number?
Yeah, and I saw that 7 earlier, and 7, if I was betting anything, I think you got to take the points with Phoenix. I know Los Angeles having momentum now and going home and all of that factored in, but look, at the end of the day, Phoenix is still a pretty deep team, and I think they can compete with these guys. So overall, especially now that the line's dropping a little bit, I'm not going to be touching anything with that. However, I am going to be going the route of a player prop once again. How about Deandre Ayton over 14.5 minus 127? He's averaging right at there this whole season, but even more so against the Lakers, Schmidt. He's averaging 18.4 points per game versus the Lake Show. He's gone over this mark of 14.5 in 4 out of 5 games versus the Lakers. In both of these playoff games, Game 1 dropped 21 points. Game 2 dropped 22 points. And then the other couple games, like I said, during the regular season, 17, 26. The only game he didn't go over is where he dropped 6 points, but that's because he only took 3 shots and he made them all. So Ayton is a guy who's taking primarily all of his shots at the rim, 61%. He's making 75% of them. The Lakers, another team that's sound defensively, but where they slack is at the rim. They're allowing opponents to shoot 65%, which is a little bit below average in the NBA, and a majority of the shots overall, high frequency, are coming at the rim. So the opportunities clearly have been there for Ayton. I think they continue tonight, take advantage of the lower prop number, and go over with Ayton at 14.5.
What do you like here with the Nuggets and Blazers?
So I went in a different route here. I kind of leaned toward the Blazers for this whole series, and they're still a favorite with their series price. I lean toward them to win this game tonight, Schmidt. I don't like the line being over 3. If it's 3.5, 4, I kind of just want to stay away. But again, going with another player prop. And this one, you got to be willing to lay a little bit more, but it's a unique one as well. Michael Porter Jr., the number of 3-point field goals made, I went under 3.5. I think 3.5 is a tad bit too high. I laid about minus 150 to go to the under. He's averaging less than 3-3-point field goals made per contest overall this season. He's only gotten 4 or more in 17 out of 63 games this season, has not eclipsed more than 3 3-pointers against the Blazers in 4 contests so far this season, or maybe it's 5, excuse me. But again, averaging versus Portland, he's only making 2 threes per contest as well, and he stayed under it, like I said, in all 5 games. And, Portland defensively isn't a really good team from the 3-point range. That's where they've allowed the most damage to occur. But the past 2 games in this postseason, they've actually limited opponents to shooting under 38%, which is fairly solid compared to what we saw from them before. So I think MPJ stays under 3.5 3-point field goals made. Laid a decent price to do so, but I love him as a player. He stepped up. From beyond the arc, the Blazers are defending him pretty well, so I'm hoping he kind of is lackluster from that spot continuously.
Have you looked at series, who you've picked, Suns, Lakers, Nuggets, Blazers? Have you gone that route? How many games and who wins them?
So I didn't do any with them in particular. The interesting strategy with the Lakers is the time to jump in on them was after Game 1 because it went down to basically a pick-em for the series price, and now they're about minus 315, Schmitty. Same thing with the Nuggets. When they were down 1-0, you could get them over $2, catching 2-1 odds or more, which is a good price. Similar opportunity we're still seeing here, though, with the Clippers and the Mavericks. Yes, the Clippers have looked abysmal, and Dallas has been really solid, but you can get the Clippers at 2-1 odds. I thought they were the deepest team in the West going into this, so I haven't played anything on that, but if there's still kind of a viable option for a series price, that would be my route.
You cleaning up with the Nets? You like how they're flowing right now?
Yeah, I love the Nets. So, I mean, to come out of the East, I bet the Sixers a while back at plus 440. But for this series in particular, a bet that I made was for this series to finish in under 5.5 games, meaning my assumption is that the Nets were either going to sweep or win in 5. I laid about minus 167 to do so. We had a big segment on it in the show, the differences in betting the Nets to sweep or win in 5 versus taking the single bet of number of games played in the series. And long story short, it was worth laying the minus 167 to go under 5.5 games played in this series. And, knock on wood, Schmidt, it's looking pretty good thus far. The Celtics team is really just not that solid. They've had a rough year, and the Nets are finally getting acclimated with one another. So I like this Brooklyn team to finish it out. Probably, I think, in a sweep would not surprise me by any stretch of the imagination at this point.
Danny Burke with us, Burke's Best Bets, Pride of Chicago, at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter. Rush Hour, his show, 6 to 7, weeknights Central. And, of course, can hear him on iHeart and different affiliates across the country. Danny, about 10 seconds. What's on the horn tonight?
Tonight we're going to be talking a little bit of basketball, of course, with our VSiN senior NBA analyst, Jonathan Von Sobel. And then we're hitting hockey, baseball, and a little bit more props in NBA like we were talking about on the show as well. So getting you ready for all the postseason action.
There he is, Pride of Chicago, Danny Burke. Danny, we'll get caught up next week. Thanks for a few minutes today.
You bet, Schmitty. Take care.
Good stuff from Danny Burke, Pride of Chicago. We'll wind down a Thursday with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, and just doing a little digging, Fox Sports has a regular season baseball game scheduled at 7 p.m. on the 18th of September.
And I also did some digging, and the big noon kickoff, Nebraska's big one last year against Ohio State, actually drew a lot better ratings than a lot of the 7 p.m. Like the
night games.
The LSU-Alabama game last year, it was a night game, and Nebraska drew almost 2 million viewers in the Nebraska-Ohio State game than Bama and LSU did.
More.
2 million more viewers, yes.
Well, here's one thing for certain. Get your hot tub now from Deb the Spa Lady, Home Innovation Spas, 20th and Highway 2 in Lincoln, off Industrial Road in Omaha, spasonline.com. Get that hot tub picked out so you can be in it and relaxing during Nebraska, Oklahoma. Deb, isn't that the game plan?
That's the game plan, and I think I might go out and turn ours up a couple degrees. It's kind of chilly out there tonight, and the wind is blowing. That's the nice thing about having a hot tub. You can adjust that temperature, whether it's 80-plus degrees one day and 60 and going down into the 40s the next.
Whether it's football season or baseball season, Deb, you've got that temperature gauge to make it refreshing and relaxing.
We sure do, and we have all the sizes. The nice thing is you could go from a little two-person spa up to the big swim spas and everything in between. We're actually starting to get those lead times down a little bit. So it's a time to come in, get that spa ordered, and we'll get it in your backyard as soon as we possibly can.
Deb, you've been doing this for 3 decades. You've helped folks get so many different spas. And the swim spas really, it's got to kind of take the cake of all the spas you've seen, isn't it, over the years?
Oh, my gosh. We started out selling those little soft tubs.
Yeah.
They were round, they weighed 65 pounds, and they had 4 jets. So now we're selling a 19-foot spa with, I don't even know how many jets you can say that one has. Yeah, you're right. If they'd have told us this 30 years ago, we would have said, you're dreaming.
When can folks come see you, Deb, this weekend and throughout the week?
Well, we're there Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, and then Saturday we'll be there 10 to 4. And our website, it's spasonline.com.
And Deb, last thought, you don't have any Boomer Sooner colors down there, do you?
No. No, I don't even have to look.
There we go.
I can tell you no.
You've got the big red, but no sooner maroon, thankfully. Deb, we'll talk next week. Thank you so much.
Okay, Chris. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Go see Deb the Spa Lady, Home Innovation Spas, 20th and Highway 2, off Industrial Road in Omaha. Log on, spasonline.com, and no sooner maroon in the showroom.
Thank God.
That's good. That's good. Longwells, tomorrow. You're coming back from the Nebraska baseball game. Pop on by Longwells. We're down in the rail yard post Nebraska, Michigan. And pour one. Enjoy. Relax. Warm up.
Will Wilson from the Morning Hookup now is going to be in a little guest spot doing some producing.
You have a wedding to attend.
Yeah, tomorrow night's the rehearsal dinner, so I gotta go do that.
Well, that's a good time, and you'll nail the speech. Elijah, appreciate you, brother. Longwells tomorrow at 4 with Hail Varsity Roadshow Friday. Talk to you then. Thanks.